Hi, this is Carol Watson, and I am the Chief Thriver at Thrive.com, and welcome to the Thrive Talk this week. And we are very excited and a little warm in the Northeast right now. I'm kind of bundled up. It's crazy, colder than it's ever been in 20 degrees, and I'm very jealous right now of Ron in Dubai. I'm sure he's very toasty, as you can see. But we're very excited to welcome our guest this week, Ron Thomas. Ron, welcome to another episode of Thrive Talk.
Thank you for having me. I just want to throw this out. It was 84 degrees today.
Oh, that's mean.
And I went swimming this morning at the rooftop pool, so that frames it.
That is awesome. Ron, tell us a little bit about what your role is currently. What are you doing now?
Well, I'm the CEO of a U.S.-based HR consulting firm, Great Place to Work Institute. It's based out of San Francisco. But I came to the Middle East approximately 2 years ago as Chief Human Resource Officer for a defense contractor located in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And I worked there for maybe a year and a half, and I eventually found another job here in Dubai as CEO. So I've had two roles in the Middle East since I've been here over the past 2 years.
So the big question is, how did you end up in Dubai? I know you are a very successful Park Avenue HR senior leader. So how were you inspired to make that move? How did that happen?
I always wanted to live the life of an expat, and I was lucky enough to be a part of an executive exchange program. And SHRM, SHRM, is a governing body for human resources, and they had a program. They picked 35 executives from across the country, and we went to China for about 3 weeks. And that was my first venture into a regimented consulting assignment in another country. I have always been very interested in living the life of an expat and joined every possible group in every possible country I could to keep track of what the issues were, that type thing, and connect with people. But when I went to China, I spent 3 weeks there, and we were basically the toast of the town because we were opening a new SHRM office there. We spent a lot of time with various multinational companies such as General Motors, Lenovo at that particular time. And I tried as best as I possibly could after China to try to get a job to move back to China. That didn't work. I got some leads, but nothing really panned out. So I just kept working at it. I knew that's where I wanted to end up. And then, lo and behold, one day I got an email from a recruiter in Saudi Arabia said, "I saw your profile on LinkedIn, and I'd love to discuss this exciting new role with you. Would you be interested?"
So tell us first about what the lure is. What was a lure for you to be an expat? What made people be missing by not thinking about that as a part of their career path?
Well, I've always vacationed, and my wife and my kids, we always have vacationed in Europe, travel around Europe, and so that kind of piqued my interest about working in a different country because, when you if you've traveled, you go to a different country, the culture is different, the pace of work is different, all those type things. And I've always just wanted to do that. So I just basically followed my instincts and started trying to network with people that was involved in human resources in each one of the countries that I would want to work in. I'd read everything I could possibly read about it, join every group I could possibly join, and try to get to know key people. And when I first started this journey, blogs were just coming out. And one of the things about a lot of these blogs, they're always looking for content. So I contacted a lot of the HR blogs, and I got picked up on one in London, and I've been writing for them now for about 5 years. And also one in India around the same time, and just kept doing that type thing, because you never know who's going to read it. So you know, with that, the LinkedIn profile, every time I did some work in another country, I'd always post it on my profile, kept my profile up to date, and eventually someone saw it, and that's how it all started.
So those of you in the Thrive community, make sure you take a look at Ron's LinkedIn profile so you can get an idea of what types of keywords, what kinds of experiences are attractive to companies in other countries. Were there any things that you think that you did in your LinkedIn profile beyond the articles that you think were a draw that people should think about in terms of revising? We're a big fan of having people revise their summary to kind of reflect what they want to do. But any hints that you thought were really attractive to companies outside of the U.S.?
Well, one of the things I tried to do was to, because I write a lot, and I speak at a lot of engagements. So I wanted to get on the speaker circuit in the Middle East. And that was something I started as soon as I got here, and basically wrote to people who was producing the conferences and said, this is who I am. If anyone backs out, which people always do at a conference, I would be more than glad to step in. I didn't ask them for a spot or a role. I just offered my services in case someone backed out. And within a matter of a week, I had 3 to 4 invitations. And these were, and I've been to Turkey, I've been to Africa twice. I'm going to Singapore, I think in another month or so. And every time I would speak, I would go back on LinkedIn and list it under speaking engagement. So if you look on my profile, every speaking engagement that I've done is listed there, and the role I played, whether it was a keynote or whether it was a conference chair. If you're a conference chair, that's a little more prestigious than just coming in and doing a keynote. So every time I always tell people, every time I sneeze, I go to LinkedIn and put it on.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
What was it about the Middle East or Dubai in particular, now that you're there, that was the draw for you, and how did you change your perceptions of it from after working there now for a little bit?
Well, I came to the Middle East because that's where the offer came from. If the offer came from China, maybe the conversation would be a little different. Wherever the offer was going to come from, I was going to take it. I knew I was going to take it. So there was no doubt in my mind that, if it was in Hungary, I don't care where it was, I was going to take an expat role. So that was my focus. And wherever the offer came in, I was going to take it. So I tried to position myself on LinkedIn, and as I write about various topics under the HR banner, I hate the word expert, but I tried to position myself as a kind of a person who knew a lot of things. And that was picked up. And, so it's really worked for me over here. I would think I've been more successful in 2 years over here than I've been in all my years of working in HR in the U.S.
Why would you say that?
Because I get, in a matter of a week, I may get 1 or 2 requests for, can you come here and speak with us? I got an email from a doctor today who read an article I wrote about his hospital. And he said, we have these leadership conferences. We have this medical conference, but we always have a focus sometime on leadership, and we'd love to have you come speak. Now, for me going to a hospital with all these pathologists and all this kind of thing, that's not even synced up with human resources, but someone saw that and thought I would make a speaker for a leadership piece. I was at a college on Wednesday that someone saw something I wrote and said, would you be willing to come and facilitate our leadership development offsite that we're going to have? Because I saw some of the things you wrote and this kind of thing. So everything feeds into the other. And people have to be very cognizant of the fact that you got to have more than just a resume. You've got to stake something out in your field that you know something about. That people can look to you as kind of an expert, hate that word, as kind of an expert, a person who knows a lot about it. And that's how you have to try and brand yourself. Someone told me the other day, well, I want to leave my job, but I'm not getting any no one's calling me for interviews. And I said, Have you updated your profile on social media? No social media to speak of. And the job that she currently has, she shows nothing on there but the title and the dates that she's worked there. And I say, if you go back and look at that, you'll see why nobody's called you. Because people over here, when these people in human resources, these recruiters come into work, the first thing they do is to open up LinkedIn. They stay on it all day. I was at a client the other day and walked through their recruiting department and every screen on LinkedIn, and they were into it, looking through profiles. And see over here, they don't have a hangout. There's no diversity issue because you have people from all over the world. You know, so there's no hang up about not going to hire you because of if you've got the talent. If you've got 3 eyes and you can do the work and you're talented, they're going to hire you. They don't care. They don't care about that.
Can you talk a little bit more about what the work environment is like there, both work and life experience versus what your previous experience was on stateside?
Well, living in Dubai is like living in a futuristic city. Everything is positive. The news is positive. And they don't focus on, if you watch the news in the U.S., it's just bad news behind bad news behind bad news. Here, they talk about this big project. They're talking about Dubai 2020 and what companies are doing to you know, as it relates to that to get ready for 2020. They're talking about the new building they're going to build. They're talking about a new mall. It's always positive news. You go on the metro and you think in terms of the subway. Well, the metro is what we use here, and it's probably the cleanest. I have never seen a public transportation system as clean as it is. And you go into the metro stations, which is a subway station, and it looks like a piece of art. And nobody throws anything on the ground. It's just clean beyond clean. So when you're in that positive environment all the time, and you go back to New York and you get on the subway, the A train, or whatever it is, and it's running back and forth, and you wobbling back and forth on the train, it's like going back in time. So there's a positive work environment, and the culture is more relaxed. You have an hour meeting with someone, they're going to talk about family, travel, the small things for 45 minutes. And then only in the last second, or the last 10 to 15 minutes, will they get down to business, and they'll make a decision right on the spot. Whereas in New York, someone gives you an hour, you're going to go in, as soon as you sit down, you're talking business. Here it doesn't work that way, because they will tell you right away, let's slow this up. How was your weekend? What are you doing? Is your family here? What are you guys doing on the weekend? Are we doing this? Are we going to be here? They want to build a relationship. And it's not as fast-paced as it is in, say, stateside. And I say New York, that's the only thing I can compare it to, because that's the only city that I've worked in since I've finished college, you know.
How else would you say that your leadership style has changed, or what else is required in terms of your skills and talents that are different for you?
Skills, I mean, what has changed with me in doing business is to slow it down. Is to really, really slow it down. I'm not rushed when I go in to see a client. We'll sit and talk, and I'll look for them to get the cues as to when are we going to get into the business end of it. I leave it to them to kind of drive that, because here you're going to talk. You're going to talk about small things, and it's not going to be that rush. So that was something I had to just slow down and get with it the way that they do it over here. And you can't rush these things. Because some of us say, well, you know, it takes a long time to close a deal here. Well, it takes a long time to close a deal, but you close a deal, you close it the right way, it'll be profitable for you. But you can't come in there with this New York attitude that you're going to close this in 2 tries. Because you have to get to know them. You have to get to know their family makeup and all these kinds of things.
And as a black man leader in corporate America, what do you miss, and what has brought you surprising comfort from working and living in Dubai?
I don't miss anything. And let me frame that. It's just I've never lived in an environment that everything is doable. Even my commute, looking at the architecture of as you travel through the tunnels of all these buildings, and it's just so positive that I don't miss anything about doing business in the U.S. And my wife and I always laugh. I said if I would have hit this right out of college, I wouldn't come back, because why would I want to come back and deal with what we, in a lot of cases, would have to deal with? I mean, I live maybe a block from a high-end mall, Tiffany, Cartier, and all these stores, and I can go in there and I'm treated as a customer. I don't have to worry about anybody trying to follow me around in the store or any of this foolishness. The policemen over here, for the most part, don't even carry guns. And everybody, if something were to happen on the road and the police comes up, they come up to serve you. That's the mentality. They come to serve you and help you out. It's not coming up, you're suspect until I find out something different. So I don't miss any of it.
Have you heard do the politics and the cultural challenges that we have in the U.S. come up in conversations with your friends and colleagues in Dubai around racial tension in the U.S.?
I go to a lot of dinner parties, and the U.S. is always the butt of the jokes. We don't read, we don't know our history, we don't know global history. We are tied into this one mindset of the U.S. being superior of all these other countries. So you get teased by that a lot. And someone told me at a party that right before I left to come home for the holidays, said, the United States has the smallest proportion of their populace with passports of all the countries in the world. And I said, oh, you got to be kidding me. I mean, people travel. And when I got home that night, I Googled it, and I found that report, and we are ranked at the bottom of populace with passports. The 3 states in the U.S. with the largest percentage of people with passports were Connecticut. I think Connecticut was number 1, New Jersey was number 2, and I think Massachusetts was number 3. The bottom rung, the lowest rung, Alabama, South Carolina, Arkansas. These are facts, so I'm not pulling it. If you're from one of those states, I'm just giving you the facts. And they were like 17%, 18%, because people don't travel. So my thing is, when you don't travel and you don't get to see other people and learn their cultures, you don't respect them as much as if you have lived there and you've known people and you've interacted with people.
Ron, I'm interested in, because our community is made up of people in the media and the digital and the marketing space, what trends have you seen as a consumer? Having worked at Martha Stewart Living, what trends have you seen as a consumer around media, how people consume it? Anything that sparked your curiosity that you can share?
Well, it's funny you mention that, because I have a lot of clients that are in the media and advertising space, and so I read all their periodicals. Matter of fact, I wrote an article I was over here 1 week, and someone contacted me from, I think, Motivate is the magazine, and I wrote an article for them. But as far as consumers are concerned, here, every available piece of space is used for advertisements. Buses, the metro. But it's all done in a dignified way. It's not like these billboards you see. The billboards here would take up the entire skin of a building. That's the kind of thing they do here. But the same products, categories, all those things that are big in the U.S., it's the same thing here. But the ads are different. Specifically being in the Middle East, they're not as I don't know how to put this, but they're not. What's that?
Not as sexual.
Not as sexual. Yes, as simple as that. They're not as sexual. But sometimes I see ads, and they don't even. And I say lots of times the American companies are so clueless. They will put an ad on, and the ad has all Europeans on the ad. And here, the companies that get it, they have people in the traditional garb, You know, the men in the tobes, and the women in a lot of cases the abayas, and the kids and all this kind of thing. And they present it that way. And then you'll see an ad that pops up with someone who looks out of place here. And I'm thinking, what person sat in on that meeting that thought this was going to be a good idea?
There's always somebody in the room that is not.
Yeah. They came up with this because it's totally out of place. But all of the ad space mirrors the populace. Okay, it mirrors the populace. And even the newspapers, it's always positive stories. I mean, it's just amazing how things can happen. And it's always a positive. They look for positive things to put out there. So as being a citizen and living in this and reading this and watching the news, it's all positive. You can't help but to be in a positive frame of mind.
So that's a great segue to our traditional question that we always ask our guests. Tell us about any app, book, resource, any habit that you have that helps you thrive in Dubai, despite the 84 degrees, of course.
Yeah, 84, yeah. You know what? For the past, long as I can remember, I've always been kind of a fanatic on working out. And people say, oh, well, you work out, you know, for the body. I said, it's mentally for me. Because days I don't go to the gym, I don't have the energy level. So my day starts at basically 4:30 in the morning. I wake up and I pedal around and I walk out of here at 5:15, 5:20. And the gym is right down the street. And I work out until 7 o'clock. I sit there and have a cup of espresso, read the paper for a half hour, and then I leisurely walk away to go to work. And that frames my mind every day. And that's 7 days a week I do that, because that, to me, that means a lot. Because the mental aspect of a person's being is so extremely important. But so many times we neglect that part because we're so busy into other things, and then we find ourselves whacked out or depressed over things. So what works for me is working out. I walk a lot, all over the place. I moved here and brought my car over from Riyadh, and I think I've driven my car 5 times in 6 months. Because I walk everywhere. I live a block from the metro station, so there's no need for me to drive a car and get in all that traffic and get all aggravated.
That's a beautiful thing. I'm trying to adopt both of those things into my habits. So thank you so much, Ron, for your chat today. We started a little late, and so what we want to be able to do is answer any questions that people have throughout the week. So send your questions, add them to the chat, or send them to us at info@thrivev.com. And we'll make sure that we ask Ron to respond to any questions that you have about working and living in Dubai. And I'm sure that Ron would be open to welcoming any visitors to encourage more diversity from the U.S. into Dubai. Any parting thoughts, Ron?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I want us to think about job opportunities in other countries. We're so locked into this geographical shell of USA. Something happens, you get laid off, whatever it is, and we look for another job in the same city, same town, or maybe another state. Well, there's a whole world out here looking for people that has talent. And if you're one of those talented, whether it's marketing, advertising, whatever it is, you should try and find something in another country. I mean, Barack Obama said when he was first elected, and I never forgot it, he said he called himself a global citizen, a citizen of the world. And I like that phrase because I consider myself a citizen of the world. Awesome. Although that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but anything he does is going to run a lot of people the wrong way.
Well, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Microsoft, for sponsoring us and allowing us to have this opportunity. Please share your questions and comments and join us next week for another Thrive Talk. Enjoy your day, and happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye.